Welcome to Dance Specific Talks. This podcast is made for us dancers, and our goal here is to inspire dancers from all over the world to become better, both on and off the dance floor. We want to provide you with a platform where we dancers can share and learn from each other. So let me introduce to you your host for this podcast, Teaser, and remember as always, by dancers, for dancers.
What's up, party people, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite dance podcast, Dance Specific Talks. Today, I am going all the way to New York City in the States as I am talking with the owner and CEO of Sonja McCord Experience. We are going to talk with Sonja McCord herself. What do you need to know about Sonja? Well, she is not only the CEO and founder of Sonja McCord Experience, she is a ballerina who has dedicated a lot of passion and time into creating coaching and mentor programs for dancers aspiring to brand themselves and become more visible. And we are going to ask her all about it in this interview. But before we get into it, you already know what to do. Click subscribe button on YouTube, Facebook, Dance Specific Talks on Spotify, iTunes, and don't forget to share your favorite episode. I release a new interview every single Monday so that you can stay inspired, and we are growing when you are. And now, let's get it going. Welcome to this episode, Sonja.
Hello, thank you.
All the way from New York City.
Absolutely.
So you're based in Manhattan, am I right?
Yep, I am. I live in Midtown and I love it there. It's where all the action is. Most people hate living close to Times Square, but for me, it's like where all of the good New York energy is. And that's why we come to the city, for that energy, you know?
It really is. I've been to New York a bunch of times, and as like an aspiring hip hop dancer, I went to New York to just see everything. And I remember almost crying in the subway from the airport, seeing like a couple arguing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just like the movies.
Yes, it is just like the movies. And even like, because some of my favorite movies, I don't know if you ever seen Big Business, it was like from the 80s. But it took place in New York City and they were like pounding the pavement in their heels and they were tired. And I'm like, and the cabs were going all crazy. And like, I wanted that as a child. And so when I got to New York and I got that experience, for me, I'm in heaven. Like a lot of people, it's a nightmare to live in New York, but I love everything about it, even the chaos.
Oh, yeah, the chaos and like being at Union Square and seeing all these dancers there and people hitting the trains. And like as a dancer, I just feel like it's everywhere in New York. It's amazing.
It is. And also just seeing like the street talent and the dancers that come on the trains and, just walking down the street and hearing some really, really good musician like on the side, just playing this guitar or singing. And it's just fascinating.
It really is. It really is. And I kind of want to see your journey in front of me. Like you are a ballerina, and how did your dance journey start and how did it like take you to where you are today? I know it's a long story, 15 plus years, but kind of in a summary, how would you describe your journey into the dancing life?
Well, I always say I was born to be a dancer, just like Martha Graham would say. And because my oldest memory is when I was about 2 years old watching the movie Annie, and I just fell in love with that movie, with the dancing, with Anne Rankin in particular. She was my favorite character in Annie, aside from Annie. Just all of the singing. And I just remember wanting that life. Like I want singing waitresses like in my house and, the chauffeur and all of those grand things. And every time the movie would go off, I would cry. I would just be like devastated about the movie ending. And so that's kind of how I knew I loved dancing. And the other half of that is that I fell in love with Michael Jackson as a little girl too. And I was just obsessed with his whole entertainment quality. I mean, yes, even as a little kid, I knew a star when I saw it. And Michael Jackson's energy, his moves, his videos, they were so theatrical. And I just remember thinking, like, I want that for myself. Fast forward to when I was 6 years old, my next door neighbor's dance studio was having an open house. And so I was invited to go. And I remember I was wearing like a khaki skirt and a blouse and tights because my sister dressed me up for this, open house. And the teacher said, "Do you want to try it out?" And I was like, "Okay, let's, I'll try it." I was very shy, but I always forced myself to take a leap and take a chance. And so I took it, and I remember feeling ridiculous that I had these clothes on, like absolutely stupid, because I'm like, I don't have dance clothes on. Everyone else does, but I'm in a khaki skirt and white tights dancing around. But when it was over, my mom asked me how I liked it. And I was like, I want to do this. And so she enrolled me into the school, and that's how I started dancing. And from there on, it just became just this, I like to call it magical. I know that's sort of ethereal speak, but for me, it's just the opportunities that came into my life. I feel like I was always manifesting them. So from seeing in the newspaper ads for Pittsburgh Ballet Theatre and just saying to myself, like, I want this opportunity, and begging my parents to let me go to Pittsburgh Ballet Theatre. Eventually it happened. I got to train at Pittsburgh Ballet Theatre. And then that's when I learned that there was something really special about ballet in particular, because before that I was like, my favorite type of dance was tap, which I still love. Like, if you asked me what my favorite dance genre is, I can't pick one. So, but ballet is where my journey led, because at some point you have to choose. And when you're in ballet, that's all you can do. And so I went there. We moved to Nashville. I was at Nashville Ballet. And from there, I wanted to go to college. And there were very few high quality dance programs at that point. And Alvin Ailey had just opened up their BFA program the year prior. And so I applied and I got in. And I also had high hopes of going to Juilliard, visited the school and everything. And somehow I missed the deadline. To this day, I have no idea how I did that, because I still remember the deadline. It was November 15th. So I don't know. This is why I feel like the universe just sort of, because I remember asking my mother, I remember having this conversation with her and saying, I don't know which one I'll choose, Juilliard or Alvin Ailey. I was like, it's going to be such a hard decision. And this is why I feel like the universe made the decision for me, because I missed the deadline for the number one school I wanted my entire life. And so I felt that I was destined to be an Ailey, and I embraced that. And it was an incredible journey. But that's how I got started in dance.
Wow. Wow, I love hearing how people fall for this art form, because it is very different. And a lot of people actually say that they are very shy before they're starting to dance. And I wonder what that is, that you maybe can hide behind the music in a way. You don't have to be speaking or, in the front singing. At least that's how I felt when I started dancing, that I rather dance to the sounds than making the sounds myself.
Yeah, it's true. And even I never felt shy on stage. It's such a weird phenomenon.
Right.
But if you told me to dance right now in front of my friends or people, I mean, if I'm playing around, sure, I'll play around and dance like to just a fun song. But if you ask me to really dance, I won't do it. I'm like too shy in front of people I know. But the audience is just a bunch of strangers. And I think because they come there without judgment, they come there just to enjoy the full experience. And so it gives you as a performer just that freedom to move on stage and just enjoy the atmosphere, the lights and the audience and the live music and all of those things. I think because even Michael Jackson was really shy.
Right. And talking about that, I came across a quote on your Instagram that just stuck up to me because I just love this sentence. And I think it was back in 2019 where you said, I don't make fear-based decisions anymore. And I just want to hear a little bit how fear-based decisions have played a part in your life and how you worked on overcoming them.
Yes. Most of my childhood, I I'm like a juxtaposition between two worlds. There was a part of me that was very fearless when it came to convictions and speaking up for what was right. At that point, my fear didn't matter because the cause was bigger than the fear. But if it was something like putting myself out there or doing public speaking, of course I would make myself do it, but I was terrified to do that. Somewhere from college beyond, I started to develop a fear of the unknown and making decisions because I was afraid of the outcome, in particular, like money. Should I audition and focus on auditioning, or should I get a job and get money and have stability? You know, different questions like that. Or even taking that workshop with Galen Hooks, I think that's where I wrote that. I was terrified. I hadn't been dancing in the longest. And I'm like, I'm about to take this workshop with this amazing choreographer. Like, what if I'm a hot mess, you know? And knowing how good I used to be and then taking time off, there's an enormous set of fear that comes with that, the fear of rejection, the fear of judgment. And I just decided that year that enough was enough and that I needed to go back to that person that didn't really care, because the cause of me putting out my art and sharing my movement and my mission with the world is bigger than my fear, just like when I was a little girl.
That's so beautiful. It was funny because when I
Thank you.
did my research on you, like I just kept scrolling, and you're the first dancer ever that I saw like a beauty pageant coming up, and I was like, oh my gosh, here we have a dancer who's embracing her, her feminine power, her beautiful curves, her, like right on the spot questions and everything. And I was like, where does this fear-based decisions, have they always been there? How did she overcome them? So I had to ask you, and I loved seeing that.
Funny thing about that is competing in pageants really helped me get over a lot. Well, I'm not over fear. I still have fear every single day, and I know how to present as if I don't have fear. It's sort of like faking it, but I'm always nervous and I have to like force myself to get past that. But with pageants, I had to learn how to interview well. And I used to bomb my onstage questions every single time. And literally, I had to learn to like not put pressure on myself and not focus on what I can't control. And as other people are on stage answering their questions, I have to block it out. And I just stay very centered and start thinking about, it's the same thing. It's the same concept. I guess is a theme that's happening in this conversation today, is that what I wanted to say, the message was more important than the fear. And I would just, as I would sit there waiting for my opportunity, praying for a good question, I would say, okay, Sonja, what is the message that you want to share with the world today? And just focus on that. And I would just think about that and I would pray about it. And then I would go up and these answers would come out like magic, literally like magic. And I would go back, when I'm finished and I'm done, like inside, I'm like, yes, like I nailed it. Because it's so hard. It's really hard, but it's just, I think the lesson is when you focus on what's important, fear doesn't matter anymore. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, I know what you mean. And it's almost like, I know that feeling when it's almost feeling like you don't speak at all. There's something else. Just,
yes.
It can be when you are supporting a friend and you suddenly say the things that they really needed to hear. And you're like, did I say that?
Right. So true.
Yeah. So going from, we could deep dive into your long dance experience. You've been in several dance ballet companies and all of this, and I can't even mention all of it. But what do you think has been one of your biggest takeaways from being a ballerina, being a professional dancer, pointed toes and everything, coming into what you're doing today, running your own mentorship programs, etc.?
I think what's driving me more than anything is just my passion for dancers and making it an easier journey for them, because dancing is very hard. And I would argue that it's the only career where you're forced to stand in front of a mirror all day and criticize yourself and look for what's wrong. Because in dance, there's always something to improve, right? You hear the teachers say, like, you can always get better, you can always get your leg higher, you can always do an extra turn. And so with that criticism, like, that trickles into every other area of our life. And especially when it comes to defining ourselves as dancers. And what I'm seeing is a pattern of dancers not giving themselves the ability to say, I'm a professional dancer, because they're not in a professional company, because they didn't get that big Broadway show, or they're not, on a tour with some major artist. They're just training and auditioning. And it's almost like you're waiting for someone else to say yes to you before you can live your purpose. And my mission is to change that, to disrupt that aspect of the industry so that it's easier for dancers, so that they can believe in themselves and accept that I am a professional dancer, whether I get paid or not. If I was professionally trained, or even if I'm not professionally trained and I'm a street dancer and I'm really good at what I do, I'm a professional dancer. This is my career. This is what I focus on. And with the Sonja McCord X, I'm leading that movement that gives dancers permission to say yes to themselves, to create their own body of work, to create their own portfolios and share their art with the world and build their own legacy. And that's not to say stop auditioning and stop aspiring for these amazing opportunities, because I am in full 100% support of that. But while you're doing that, while you're waiting for that opportunity, you have power. You have power, just like Mr. Ailey and Mr. Mitchell at Dance Theatre of Harlem, or Maris Cunningham, or Martha Graham. You have the same power and ability to build your own legacy. And so that's my mission. That's the movement I'm leading.
Yeah, and it must, like, I can't even begin to imagine what a big step it must have been for you to realizing, okay, as a dancer, these were the things I missed, and I wish somebody would have told me. Why don't I create that for others? Like, tell me a little bit about that shift that made you, like, go from being a dancer yourself to, like, it's time for me to give all of that I didn't get.
Well, that's exactly it. I got to perform with those companies as a student. I never got the opportunity to be a member of the company. And so somewhere there was this shift where I don't really want to get into the story, but I had a bad experience in ballet that pushed me out of the dance industry that I did not want to happen. And it had to do with racism. And I didn't know who I was when I wasn't in a classroom, when I wasn't training full time, when I wasn't performing. And it was like this identity crisis that I went through. And I found that a lot of dancers go through the same identity crisis now, even if they're still training, because they're not getting opportunities. So for me, I started working in marketing as a professional career. And that led me to working for Capezio Ballet Makers as a global Pointe Shoe Specialist. And I would talk to these dancers, and because they knew that I had this professional experience, they would ask me all sorts of questions like, how can I stand out? What can I do for my career? And I started to see this trend, that a need and a gap in the industry. And so I created a program that would resolve that, because I would go over in my time with each appointment, because there was so much to teach them. And so finally I decided, let's create a program that can elevate the dancer ability to increase their visibility across, the social media, across regular media, and just become a household name as a dancer.
What would you say has been like the number one struggle that you have seen across the board when it comes to dancers, not like invisible talents that you are trying to turn into, branded dancers?
I think it's mindset. Dancers are just terrified, and it comes from being perfectionist and having this high demand for excellence. And it's like, if it's almost like an all or nothing type situation where if I'm not at the top of my game, or if I need to get more flexible, if I need to lose more weight, or maybe when I did lose weight, I lost my best friend because she was jealous. Now I'm like hesitant to succeed because of what I might lose. It's all the mind trash that happens when you go to the audition, and maybe you have to freestyle during that audition, and you're not a good freestyler because you didn't learn maybe. And you're seeing other people freestyling while you're hearing the music. Maybe you hate the song. You're like evaluating yourself during this whole process. There's no freedom in that. There's no freedom in the judgment. And so when it comes to building your brand, that's one of the first things that I work with dancers on, is their mindset, is giving themselves the freedom and, again, the permission to go all in and give themselves permission to say yes, like 100%, without the hesitations, without the fear, to just invest in themselves without the worries. Am I not good enough? Or am I wasting my time? And should I get a real job, in quotes? That is the goal. The goal is to get that mindset shift. The goal is to get that mindset shift first, and then allow them to start building their brands.
Yeah, because I was about to ask, like, where do you even start? Because mindset is a deep-rooted thing. So when you get in front of a new client or a new dancer or a new class or whatever it is with dancers you never met before, where do you as like a coach even start on that? That must be so hard because everyone is so unique, and like this mindset issues must come from different roots. So where do you start in this assessment of like, how can I take this dancer forward?
The magic really happens in my one-to-one dancer visibility strategy sessions. And it's really about listening. The dancer will tell you where their struggles are when you hear their story. And so usually my first question is, tell me where you are in your dancing career. Where are you in your dancing journey? And you might see the face drop, or you might see someone like angry, or maybe it's just all over the place. Like, I don't know. First I was doing this. I'm not sure if I should do that. I'm trying to decide if I should move to LA or New York. And you hear all these different, they tell you, the dancer will tell you what they need. And it's my job as a coach to listen and decipher where they are right now and what they need to move forward. And so it's very specialized in that way with the one-to-one sessions. When it comes to my group program, it's a little different. It's finding the common thread between most dancers and addressing those things. And then sometimes during the weekly coaching sessions, I'll pull up someone one-to-one, and the group can watch us go through the same type of situation and question and answer, and evolve with that client one at a time. And the whole group can witness and sort of pull from that what is useful for them as well. You know what I mean?
Wow, that question just hit hard in me too. Like, where are you in your dance career? And like, oh my gosh, we have a pandemic. Like, yeah, we don't really have jobs right now. And like, that's like a that's like a straight punch right there. Because
it is.
As a dancer, you just never feel satisfied. As you said before, it's like a constant, oh, I just landed this gig, but oh, it's just for this month, or it's like for next week, but then I don't really know, and maybe I should put myself more out there and create more content, but I don't really see myself putting in money to create more content, videographers, etc. Where's it going to lead to? I mean, there's just so many questions.
It's
So
so true.
I can imagine you have seen a lot of tears in these
Yes,
sessions.
absolutely. And just you made a point about, the complicated, like hiring a photographer and videographer. I teach simplified methods of how to create beautiful content at home using an iPhone or a regular computer. And it's all about your creative ability, being creative in the angles and the lighting, having the right clothes. You can create amazing stuff without that high powered equipment, And so that's part of what my program is making it something that is accessible to you right now, even if you don't have a lot of money.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for
Thank
shooting some
you.
hope into our
Yes.
dancer lives. One of the things that also stuck with me was you have a blog on your website, which I really loved, and it really felt like you were speaking to us as dancers.
Oh, I love that.
And one of the things that I also saw was that you were talking about the term, what it means to be a dancer. What does this term mean of being a dancer? And I just would like you to elaborate a bit of what it used to mean to be a dancer and what it means today and what kind of differences you have seen.
What it used to mean to be a dancer is that you were a part of a dance company or you were in a major production and you were getting paid to move. And that still exists. Obviously, there's still dancers, right? And also it meant that you were training in the studio for at least 40 hours a week, just go, 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 rehearse, rehearse. No time for the rest of your life, right? Like how many birthday parties did you miss in your childhood? How many like school games could you not go to because you had dance? So that's what the old version of defining a dancer is in my world. And what it is now is going back to the roots of what dancing is. Why do we dance? We dance because there's an urge, like we have to, there's a need, there's a necessity to move because we're inspired, there's that impulse. Going back to the love of dancing, going back to the freedom of just enjoying your movement, whatever that is. And there are some of us that have been so caught up in technique that we lose that love for dance. I remember being really stressed out in high school. And my mom said, you used to love to dance. You used to come home so excited. What happened? And the light bulb clicked. Like, I was just so focused on being so good and being a perfectionist that I lost that love. So a dancer today, redefining what a dancer today is having that freedom to move, to discover your own style, your signature style, to be able to explore your creativity and play with movement in your body and find unique ways. I envy street dancers because they don't have any of that technique in their mind. They're just playing and enjoying music and enjoying their bodies in a way that a lot of ballet dancers and classical dancers just don't have that type of freedom. So, and the other part of that is that if there's a time like now, the pandemic, where you're not in the studio 40 hours a week, it doesn't make you less of a dancer because you don't have to be in the studio all the time. We've learned that you can move wherever you are. And so I always say, if you can move, you're a dancer, and I stick to it.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for saying
Absolutely.
that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Last week, I'm a kizomba dancer as well. I dance couple dancing, and we haven't been able to do that for a long time. So nervous to stand in a pair of heels again, and like, am I gonna
Yes.
get my balance? Is my musicality on point? Like, will I be able to follow? And it just came back right away, and that relief was almost, I'm always tearing up talking about it because it was such a pressure on like,
Yes.
how fast am I going to be able to get back? And you realize once a dancer, always a dancer. It's in there. It will not just fly away. Yes, we have to go back to condition, stamina, technique, and all of that. But the love is maybe even stronger now than it was before.
Yes. And I have found when I go back to dance after not being off, somehow I'm stronger. It's the weirdest thing, but I think it goes back to that freedom. Like, you're just so happy to be back in there. At that point, you haven't been around it, and you've felt a void of not having danced so much that when you're there now, you're just embracing everything, and that love is back. That feeling like, oh, it feels so good to be here, and then you just are free to move without inhibitions. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm so happy you say that, you know, we can be stronger afterwards. It's really reassuring. And I also, when I was scrolling through your website, I saw that you have different projects going on. As you mentioned before, you have one-on-one coaching, you have groups, and I found out you have the Freestyle Prompts, the Dancer Visibility Intensive, and the Dancer Premiere. I just want to kind of know, for whom are these different projects for? What kind of dancers can enroll, and like what kind of dancers are specifically these designated to?
Okay, well, Freestyle Prompts is one of my favorite projects that's going to be coming out at the end of the month. It's basically, there are 1,000 prompts that are supposed to fuel your creativity as a dancer. For example, dance as if you're moving in water, or dance as if you've just heard the worst news of your life. And it just invokes imagination and playfulness. That is for anyone, especially dancers, because especially aspiring dancers, because it gives you the opportunity to discover parts of your creativity, to move different ways, to learn how to tell stories with your body without judgment. But it's also fun for just someone who loves to dance and wants the opportunity to learn how to move in a different way. And so that's what Freestyle Prompts is about. And it's about systemizing the concept of freestyle dancing, because a lot of times we see these phenomenal street dancers, right? And it's like, it seems so unheard of for us to reach that level, but we didn't see them when they first started out. And so after studying lots of those dancers, I would start to think, like, how can I systemize a process that allows dancers to start to develop those skills in a way that allows them to shine as a freestyler in auditions, in competitions, whenever it's required, right? So Freestyle Prompts is not just about the prompts. There's also the Freestyle Magic course, which gives you the system of developing those skills. I don't teach you how to freestyle because I feel that that's limiting. You're not going to see me demonstrate freestyle. You're going to hear me tell you how to move with the, like, how to use your body with the prompt, and how to discover your own imagination and your own moves that makes it unique to you, because I don't want to inflict my creativity on you. I want to give you the freedom to explore that movement. Dancer Visibility mostly, and Dancer Premiere is mostly for aspiring professional dancers or existing professional dancers that want to elevate their career and their presence in the industry. There are so many dancers right now that are getting booked straight from Instagram. So having your Instagram optimized with beautiful content that showcases who you are. How do you build a reputation if you're not in the room, right, with the teacher? There's a way to do that on Instagram so that you can show that you're professional, that you can show that you have etiquette, so that you can show that you're reliable. There are ways that you can do that on Instagram that allows a casting director or an agent to come to your page and say, yes, I want to work with this person just from your Instagram. And that's where the magic of Dancer Visibility and Dancer Premiere comes into play. So Dancer Visibility is my free intensive. It's a 5-day intensive that allows dancers to come in and learn the concepts. And then Dancer Premiere is a full year program where we go hard into how to activate the dancer visibility formula and how to actually implement the concepts that you've learned.
Wow. Again, did somebody tell me this 10 years ago? We didn't have Instagram then, but you know what I mean? Like, it is different. Like, now I am as a dancer, I'm a 30 now, and I'm still learning about
you have plenty of time.
So much. And then I can't even imagine what it must feel to be like 17 right now, coming out as a dancer and wanting to make it. And you have like, not only do you have to, as you say, show up on auditions, in classes, have the teachers who can take it to the next level, you also have to do an online branding that we didn't really we couldn't do that back then, where YouTube even wasn't a thing. So it's interesting. It's a completely different climate.
I'm glad you said that though, because it doesn't matter how old you are. You know, like Martha Graham danced until she was 80 or till she died. She danced, right? And so you asked who the program's for. It doesn't matter how old you are. It matters your ambition. It matters what your ambition is. Are you taking this seriously? And if you are, these are the ways that we can make it happen. And it doesn't matter what genre of dance you're in. I wanted to make a note of that.
Yeah. Have you seen any differences talking about genres of dance when you worked with, for example, ballet dancers, tap dancers, or hip hop dancers, or something else? Have you seen like different struggles or challenges for different type of dancers, or are they very similar?
They're very similar, but there's a high pressure for concert dancers, like Broadway, ballet, contemporary, to have perfect technique. And so the stakes are a little bit higher in that regard. Your body type is more important. Being in shape is more important. So there's a lot of pressure there that we can't control yet. But on the commercial side, the pressure is the number of competition. Like there's just so many extraordinary dancers out there. How do you get an agent? And once you have an agent, there's still hundreds of dancers that have agents that you're competing with. How do you book that job? So those are the two differences that I'm seeing in terms of just going for their careers. But everything else is aligned. You hear the same questions and the same concerns from all dancers, no matter what genre they're in.
And how, looking forward, like what kind of changes would you like to see in the dance industry so that it can become more healthy in all aspects? Because it's not only the body shape, as you mentioned, it's also, you know, that old fashioned in commercial, like one white, one black, one red hair, and like those type of stereotypes too. What kind of visions or changes are you wishing for moving into the future of dance industry?
All of the isms eliminated. No racism, no ageism, no, well, you don't really see much homophobia in a lot of the dance world, but just getting rid of the judgment in dance and the body shaming. You know, there's so many dancers. I remember weighing 115 pounds, a size 2, and they still told me to lose 10 pounds. And I was like, what? Like, it was insane, you know? And I think just accepting the diversity of the body and the diversity of our complexions and our cultures and embracing that, I would love to see artistic directors and casting directors make a concerted effort to make sure that their company represents the country that they live in particular, since I'm in America, that America is represented the way it looks. We are diverse, we are a melting pot, we have all these different cultures, and we know that dance is a universal language. So let's embrace the full totality of that. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I see that is definitely not represented, especially like we can only take the movie industry, for example, that is like slowly changing, but like the dance industry is behind on those things. We still expect a certain type of bodies or shapes, and everyone, especially maybe if you need to be in a company that everyone is supposed to look very similar. um
Right.
yeah, there's a lot of things to do.
But that's the thing. There was a time where you could have curves. If you look at some of the older ballerinas, like they were curvaceous. It was actually George Balanchine that gave us this new aesthetic that was tall, long, skinny type body. And because he was running New York City Ballet, it became the standard. But there was a time where you could be shorter or have a little curves to you. And ballerinas were sensual, you know, and so they were embraced in that way as a symbol of beauty. And I would love to see ballet go back to that with the same level of technique that we've evolved into.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah. I'm looking forward. I really hope and I really believed also that the new generations are also putting, you know, a bit harder pressure on like
Yes.
awareness and everything. So I think we have a bright future to go towards when we can start dancing again.
Yeah, I think so too. And I dancers are art in general is political and dance is political. And we've always been at the forefront of change. And so I'm really excited for this next generation of dance leaders to implement, like take their negative experiences, flip it on its head, and turn it into something that's a beautiful experience for dancers. Because whether you make it or not, I want your story to be beautiful. I want it to be something that makes you feel good, not something that ended abruptly because of racism or because of body shaming or because you just couldn't handle the attitudes or whatever in the dance industry. I want that to end. And it starts with this, it starts with us and it starts with the next generation that's coming up to stop it.
Yeah, for sure. And it comes beautifully together with another quote that I found on your blog, which was, if I were performing today, my story would be this. I am one human being with the power to make decisions that impact not only myself, but others.
Yes, yes, it's true. And that was in reference to vaccinations and being responsible, in my opinion, being responsible about the people that can't get vaccinated and that are at risk. And knowing that, and that just goes right into what I just said, is like we have the power with our movement, with our art, to be able to say what we believe in and to speak stories through that movement. And I remember when I wrote that, I thought if I were to tell a story with my dancing right now, it would be some sort of visual depiction of dancers around me being impacted by the movement that I'm making. In the same regard that if I get vaccinated, it's going to impact them positively. Or if I don't get vaccinated and I infect someone with COVID indirectly, or, you know, there's going to be an impact that's much larger than me. And so I remember when I wrote that, I was envisioning this piece that would show what that would look like and tell that story that everything that we do doesn't just impact ourselves. It really does impact the world, whether we're a small microcosm of the bigger picture or not, whether you can see it or not, there's a larger impact with every decision and action that we make.
Mm. I love that. And I think that that also goes so well with being a teacher or a
Mm-hmm.
coach and all of that. Like how we maybe as teachers think that, you know, you're pushing or supporting someone to do something good. And in the long run, like years later, that person has done the same for others and continued to grow. Do you have like a memory or a story of someone that you have coached or been teaching, um, that you later on found out that you had a big impact on?
Well, because I started coaching recently, I haven't had that grand moment yet. But maybe a year from now, after people have completed my Dancer Premier program, I can come back and share a magical story like that. But in terms of like people in my everyday life, I am constantly giving them permission to take a chance on whatever it is that they want. And I always ask, even my friends, I'll say, if money were no object, or if you knew tomorrow you could have exactly what you wanted and there's nothing that would stand in your way, what is that thing? And when they answer that, if they can, but when they do answer it, I say, that's what you need to do. And then, of course, all the objections come up, like, what if this? What about that? You know, what if I don't have the money? And I just say, if you focus on what you really want and focus on the vision, it's incredible how things fall into place. In particular, one of my good friends went back to college, a 4-year college, as a single mother. She was going through divorce, and she decided she wanted to be an interior designer. And she struggled the whole way through, but that day she graduated, it was completely worth it. And now she's getting interior design gigs all the time. Like, it's just crazy. And to me, that was just the simple act of telling her and giving her permission to go after her dream, and even coaching her through that process, through the struggle for those years. It made a huge impact in her life. And to me, it just feels so good to see that she took a chance on herself and it worked. And it didn't come easy, but it worked. And she's there. And that's exactly the feeling that I want dancers to have when they go through my program.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing
Thank
that.
you.
Really, really, I love that. I love these stories. I really think that, as you say, we can have a bigger impact on people in our everyday life, or dancers that we know or teach or even learn from.
Right.
And yeah, as a couple dancer, that energy shift is like what I feed off from. So every time I get an inspiration, musicality wise, or just a feeling, it amplifies my feeling, and it just continues to go back and forward. So what you're saying about, I call it being like a lifetime hype woman around your friends or
Yes,
colleagues or whatever it is like the best feeling to cheer on someone to just go for it, and it comes right back. So thank you so much for sharing
absolutely.
that. Oh, wow. Well, I feel like we could talk forever about these subjects, and unfortunately, an hour is not a lot. But in the end of my
No.
interviews, I always have something called fill in the gaps, which is basically that was a motorbike. Yeah, I start a beginning of a sentence, and I ask you to end it with one word or maximum an end of a sentence, whatever you feel, whatever comes to mind.
Okay. Oh my gosh. This
You
should
can
be
do
fun.
it. Okay, I'm going to start with an easy one. So,
Okay.
when I teach my students or a group of students, I always try.
To make sure that they know how important they are to this world and that there's a place for them.
When I push people to do authentic work, I want them to
Tell the world who they are and why they love and deserve to be a dancer.
nice. The reason why I don't make any fear-based decisions anymore is
Because my purpose here on earth is bigger than the fear.
I love that. If you could make everyone in the world try something at least once, it would be.
Try to do a pirouette.
And you will never, ever pay dancers too little again.
Right.
Yeah, nice, 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 nice. One thing that I'm convinced of that I think that most people would disagree with me about is
Age does not matter.
That's a good one. Ageism, that you said before.
Yes.
That's a big thing. That's a big thing.
Yeah, because a lot of people hold back their dreams because of their age. They think that they're too old, myself included. I was like that. You know, you just feel like your time has moved on, and then you wake up and you're like, wait a second, I'm still young.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if I were to die today, everyone would say, oh, she's so young. Yes, because I'm young. And so, you know, my goals are achievable. So
yes, for sure. And achievable so long time into your life. It's crazy.
yes.
All right. And the last one. The best advice I have ever received was,
don't focus on what you can't control. Do not put pressure on yourself, and don't be concerned with the judgments that other people may place on you.
boom, mic drop out. Thank you so much for that. I want to thank you again for coming here and spreading your wisdom and your knowledge. In the end of my interviews, I always say, where can people find you if they want more information? What projects should we be on the lookout for? The mic is yours.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at starring Sonja with a J, Sonja. Also, there is a link to my website on there, the Sonja, Sonja, McCordX.com. And you will find a free dancer visibility workshop that we have every 6 weeks. And you can register right now for the next one, which is dancervisibility.com. And also, my freestyle prompts are out, coming soon. And you can sign up for the wait list at freestyleprompts.com. So very, very excited about that.
That's so nice. Congratulations. And I wish you all the best and success with your new projects. Can't wait to hear more from you and follow you into the future.
Thank you so much. This was an incredible interview. I loved it, every minute of it.
Thank you. Don't forget to click subscribe, comment below, and give us a rating or review. We have a Facebook page, YouTube page, and we are on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and all the other podcast platforms. We also have an Instagram, so don't forget to tag us in your favorite episode and share it with the world, because we read all of it.